September 1, 1939, Poland. The Nazis smash across the frontiers, and the war which for years Winston Churchill has foretold begins. A new word enters the vocabulary of the world: blitzkrieg.
The resistance of Warsaw, largely arising from the surge of its citizens, was magnificent and forlorn. After many days of violent bombardment, the Warsaw radio ceased to play the national anthem, and Hitler entered the ruins of the city. In 1 month, all was over, and the nation of 35 million fell into the merciless grip of those who sought not only conquest, but enslavement, and indeed extinction for vast numbers.
Within the ruins, the gentle heart of Chopin remains enshrined.
As the Nazis look out tonight from their blatant, clattering, panoplied Germany, they cannot find one single friendly eye in the whole circumference of the globe. Not one.
Not even Stalin was a friend, though he had signed Poland's death warrant with the infamous Soviet-German non-aggression pact. Dictators don't trust anyone.
You see these dictators on their pedestals, surrounded by the bayonets of their soldiers and the truncheons of their police. On all sides, they are guarded by masses of armed men, cannons, aeroplanes, fortifications, and the like. They boast and vaunt themselves before the world, yet in their hearts there is unspoken fear. They are afraid of words and thoughts, words spoken abroad, thoughts stirring at home, all the more powerful because forbidden. A little mouse of thought, a tiny mouse of thought appears in the room, and even the mightiest potentates are thrown into a panic.
The Admiralty Building in London. Churchill is working round the clock, planning offensive strategy for the Royal Navy. Captain Pym quickly gets to know the sort of man he is.
When the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve was mobilized, I was ordered to report to the First Sea Lord, Admiral Sir Dudley Pound at the Admiralty. I arrived there on the morning of the third day of the war. Sir Dudley told me three things. First, he said, Mr. Churchill is back with us. Secondly, he said, He wants a war room, as he had in the First World War, established in Admiralty House at once. And lastly, he said, you've been selected to run this war room. You'd better go along and look at Admiralty House. So I went along to Admiralty House, to the library, which is a very lovely room looking out onto the Horse Guards Parade. And there I saw Mr. Churchill standing. He looked at me and he said, who are you? And I told him that I'd been ordered to look after his war room. And he said, right, we'll get to the other end of this carpet and we'll roll it up together.
On Churchill's very first day in office, the war at sea begins. The British passenger ship Athenia is sunk, with a loss of 112 lives. 28 of the dead are Americans. The full horror of U-boat warfare breaks upon the world. This is not war against military targets. It is total war.
Torpedo struck. Everything went in darkness and nearly choked me with the fumes from it. I screamed for my husband and stayed where I was so he could find me. He found me and took me up to the deck and found me a boat to get in. And the last I saw of him, he was standing on the rail watching me go down. I didn't know whether he was dead or alive for 2 days. Until just recently I found he was picked up. He's in Ireland. It was a horrible tragedy. Everybody getting killed around. And the boat's capsizing. I can't go on.
I see such immense walls of prevention, all built and building, that I wonder whether any plan will have a chance of climbing over them. Moreover, the leaders of the three services had not yet got a conception of war as a whole. Here was the fatal weakness of our system.
Under the threat of aerial attack, the government stresses the need for defensive measures. The civilian population of the cities must be protected against the terror bombing which has been unleashed upon Poland. The coast of Britain is patrolled. Britain waits for an attack which does not come. Old-time inspection. Old-time soldiers. Old-time thinking. In France, the Maginot Line. A monument to defensive thinking. The French take World War I as their model for all wars. France waits for an attack which does not come. The Germans also have been waiting, but they have not been idle. They have been reading a military textbook written by an obscure French colonel named Charles de Gaulle, outlining a new technique for a new warfare. Sudden attack by highly mechanized armored forces. They have learned to combine hard-hitting air power with swift-moving ground forces. A new element is introduced: airborne infantry. The Germans have already tested these techniques in Poland. and hope by their success to force France and Britain to a negotiated peace. In England, it's not bombs, it's not paratroopers, it's psychological warfare.
Now, during all this time of phony wars, an American rightly called it, our bombers weren't allowed to bomb anything. A large part of our planes were put to the highly questionable use of dropping pamphlets all over Europe. My personal opinion that a great many of us during that time simply supplied a large part of the continent of Europe with toilet tissue.
For Churchill at the Admiralty, it is no phony war. Each month, the threat of U-boats becomes more menacing. The Germans continue to perfect their lethal science. They plan to strike at the heart of British sea power. On October 14, a daring U-boat attack is made upon the traditional haven of the Royal Navy, Scapa Flow. So incredible is it to the Admiralty and captain on board the Royal Oak that a torpedo could have struck her, safe in Scapa Flow, that they attribute the explosion to some internal cause. In less than 2 minutes, the Royal Oak capsizes and sinks. Is any defense strong enough? In Germany, new heroes are welcomed and honored. Churchill has to contend with more than U-boats. German surface raiders on the prowl. The Graf Spee. Her practice was to make a brief appearance at some point, claim a victim, and vanish again into the trackless waste. Hunted down by units of the Royal Navy, she is finally cornered in the South Atlantic. She is badly damaged and sustains heavy casualties. Driven into the neutral port of Montevideo, she is allowed only 72 hours in which to take off her wounded and bury her dead.
At 8:45, as the sun sank, the Ajax aircraft reported, "Graf Spee has blown herself up." The effects of the action of the River Plate gave intense joy to the British nation and enhanced our prestige throughout the world.
Her auxiliary ship is still at large, the Altmark, a floating prison for captured British sailors. She must be found. The Royal Navy sets out in search of the fugitive. Find the Altmark. Hunt her down. After 6 months' search, the floating prison Altmark is finally located in a fjord of neutral Norway. In spite of cabinet objections, Churchill takes direct action.
I sent Captain Vian of the Cossack the following order. Board the Altmark. Liberate the prisoners. Take possession of the ship. Captain Vian's conduct aroused a wave of enthusiasm in Britain, almost equal to that which followed the sinking of the Graf Stay. Both of these events strengthened my hand and the prestige of the Admiralty. The Navy's here was passed from lip to lip.
The brilliant sea fight takes its place in our naval annals, and I may add that in a dark, cold winter, it warmed the cockles of the British heart.
Churchill fights to take the offensive wherever he can. To the German war machine, iron ore is vital. The channel of supply runs through the Norwegian port of Narvik. Churchill has long had a plan for mining the fjords of Norway to hamper shipments. The War Cabinet fears a breach of Norwegian neutrality and procrastinates. But at last, Churchill's plan is accepted.
It was too late. German eyes were turned in the same direction. The Germans succeeded in occupying all the ports on the Norwegian coast, including Narvik. Norwegian neutrality and our respect for it made it impossible to prevent this ruthless coup. Decent, civilized people, it appeared, must never themselves strike till after they have been struck dead. On the one hand, don't be unkind to the enemy, you will only make him angry. On the other, doom preparing, ready to break upon us.
One thing is absolutely certain, namely that victory will never be found taking the line of least resistance. Hitler has seized Norway. Can he be driven out? Chamberlain hurriedly assembles French and British troops for a joint expeditionary force. In these conditions, the ramshackle Norwegian campaign begins. Of comfort no man speak. Let's talk of graves, of worms and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Too little, too late. The British people lose confidence in their government. L.S. Amory quotes Cromwell's imperious challenge. You have sat too long here. Depart, I say, and let us have done with you. In the name of God, go!
On May 10, 1940, the Germans struck their long-awaited blow. Holland and Belgium were both invaded.
On May 10, the small but determined British Expeditionary Force moves forward into the eye of the hurricane.
For years, I had with truth predicted the course of events and had given ceaseless warnings, then unheeded, but now remembered.
May 10, desperately in need of leadership, the British call upon Winston Churchill at last.
I was taken immediately to the king. He looked at me searchingly and quizzically for some moments, and then said, "I suppose you don't know why I've sent for you?" Adopting his mood, I replied, "Sir, I simply couldn't imagine why." He laughed and said, "I want you to form a government." I was conscious of a profound sense of relief. At last I had the authority to give directions over the whole scene. I felt as if I were walking with destiny, and that all my past life had been but a preparation for this hour and for this trial.